Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cosmic Metamorphosis. My name is Kat. How are you all doing today? It is the 6th of January, 2022. Might be a little off today because I'm just kind of, I feel like I'm just not here. I'm sure a lot of people are feeling this. Like, I just feel like I'm living in limbo right now. So I'm sort of in between. I'm in between worlds. It just feels really weird and I don't feel like myself. I think a lot of it has to do with me having to go back to work because I can't really express who I am because that's the 3D still. So it's really hard. It's hard sometimes. But I'm sure a lot of you have been feeling that. And things were supposed to be happening, and there are a lot of things happening in the world. You just have to look for it. A lot of stuff on Telegram. There's things that are being pushed back, and because of threats against humanity. So, we're just living in limbo right now. We're just kind of waiting. As Alex Collier always says, we're sitting on the G, waiting on the O. So could flip at any time, at any moment, but while we're sitting here, it's just very, very hard to live through. It really is. Especially in the winter. Like I said, I'm here in the Northwest and we just had snow melting. So we had a couple of feet drop last week. And then it was melting the other day. And then last night it started snowing again and we woke up to another foot of snow. And then today it's kind of just raining and the snow that's on the ground is very, very heavy with the water. I tried to shovel my walkways this morning in my deck and I couldn't do too much of it because it was so heavy and I didn't want to slip. So anyway, today we are going to be talking about a mysterious canyon that was found in New Mexico. And I don't know how many of you have heard about like the mysterious cavern in the Grand Canyon that an explorer had found. It had Egyptian relics in it and Chinese relics in it and artifacts. And then the government came in and basically boarded it off and made it federal land so that nobody could go in there and find out what was in there. Of course, it's what they've been doing for a very, very long time, hiding things from humanity. So today we're going to talk about the Wingmakers, and this is something that I found probably about 20 years ago. And a lot of people don't know about it and haven't heard about it. So I just thought today I would share with you some information. So let me share my screen. So I will put the links to these couple articles below. But let's get started. So here's a website, the wingmakers.us. And it says project briefing and background. In 1972, in a remote section of northern New Mexico, a group of hikers discovered an unusual artifact and pictographs within an obscure canyon. An archaeologist from the University of New Mexico analyzed the artifact and searched the area where it was discovered, but found no signs that a prehistoric culture had established any permanent site in the canyon. It was presumed that a nomadic Native American tribe had occasionally used the canyon as a temporary settlement and had left behind a few artifacts of their presence as a consequence. There were, however, two very puzzling questions. All but one of the artifacts could be dated to the 8th century AD. The exception, known as the compass artifact, appeared to be an unusual form of technology and was found among more typical artifacts like pottery and simple tools. The compass was covered in strange hieroglyphic symbols, some of which were also found on the pottery. Secondly, the pictographs that were found in the area had inexplicably appeared, and they were strikingly different than any of the other native petroglyphs or rock art found in the Southwest, or the entire continent for that matter. Because of these two anomalies, the artifacts and the entire project quickly became the property of the US government. Of course it did. Or more specifically, the National Security Agency. It was decided that these artifacts might suggest a prehistorical extraterrestrial presence here on Earth, and that the NSA had the appropriate agenda and wherewithal to initiate a full-scale scientific expedition to determine the nature and significance of the site. The site was completely searched by a secret department of the NSA in 1973, but it only resulted in a few additional findings, and none of them were designated as technologies or evidence of an extraterrestrial presence. Sure. Additional pictographic symbols were found, but decoding them was a difficult and frustrating process. Experts were called in to help, but it was impossible to reach a consensus as to what the pictographs meant. As quickly as the project had arisen as a priority investigation, it fell into the archives of the NSA under the codename Ancient Arrow. There's so many things, you guys, that we don't know about, so many things that have been discovered that they haven't told us. So all these things we're going to be learning, they're going to be coming out. 21 years later, in 1994, a series of rock slides opened up a section of the Ancient Arrow site. The canyon was in a naturally obscure section of parkland held by the state of New Mexico. After its discovery in 1972, it had been officially sanctioned off limits to hikers and campers, same as the Grand Canyon, and it was left in its natural state. From time to time, scientists sponsored by the NSA would visit the site hoping to uncover new evidence, but were invariably disappointed. Shortly after the rock slide occurrence, a small team of operatives from the NSA visited Ancient Arrow Canyon to do some follow-up research. They discovered the rock slide had exposed an entrance to a hidden cavern that led deep within the canyon walls. At the back of this cavern, the research team discovered a well-hidden entrance into the interior of the canyon wall or rock structure of the Ancient Arrow site. There they found a system of tunnels and chambers that had been carved out from solid rock. There were a total of 23 chambers, all intricately connected to an interior corridor, and each chamber held a specific wall painting, series of pictographs, written hieroglyphs, and what seemed to be dormant alien technologies. Once this entrance to the cavern was found, a report was immediately filed with the director responsible for the Ancient Arrow project. The project was then formally brought under the jurisdiction of the Advanced Contact Intelligence Organization, or the ACIO, which organized an interdisciplinary research team to assess the exact nature of the site and attempt to discover additional artifacts or evidence of an extraterrestrial visitation. The ACIO is a secret or unacknowledged department of the NSA. It is headquartered in Virginia, but also have personnel in Belgium, India, and Indonesia. They are largely unknown, even to senior directors within the NSA. The ACIO is the lowest profile organization within the entire intelligence community. Its agenda is to research, assimilate, and replicate any technologies or discoveries of extraterrestrial origin. Its personnel consist mainly of scientists who are completely anonymous, yet are paid salaries in excess of $400,000 per year because of their security clearance and IQ. The secret organization not only possesses enormous brain power, but it is also in possession of technologies that are far in advance of any other research facility on the planet. They are, in a word, privileged. This article, let me tell you too, was written in 1998. So a very long time ago. Or it seems like a whole nother existence for me anyway. The artifacts found at the ancient Arrow site were virtually incomprehensible to the research team. There were many mysteries. Why would an advanced culture leave their artifacts in such a precise and seemingly ordered manner? What was the message they were trying to leave behind? What were their technologies and why did they leave them behind? Did the creators of this site intermingle with the native tribes or remain an isolated culture? Who were they and why were they here in the 8th century? Were they planning to return? These were only some of the mysteries that challenged the research team. Throughout the 7 months of restoration, cataloging, and analysis, the Ancient Arrow project was a complete enigma. More of the energy went into the safe preservation of the artifacts rather than attempting to solve the puzzle of their existence, though speculations were a topic of every conversation. Gradually, a hypothesis was structured by the research team that an extraterrestrial culture established an Earth colony in the 8th century and isolated itself within the ancient Arrow Canyon. They brought with them a very precise mission to leave behind a massive time capsule that would prove to be discovered in the late 20th century. While the exact nature of the time capsule was unclear to the research team, it seems probable that it was a cultural exchange of some kind and had no invasive intent to Earth or its people. It took the team of researchers nearly 2 years after the restoration was completed to decipher a partial meaning of the chamber artifacts. The 23 separate chambers seem to be linked together to form some specific message or purposeful mission. In the 23rd and final chamber, they recovered a small optical disc that was presumed to hold digital information that could be the key to deciphering the artifacts. Scientists eagerly analyzed the disc, but they could not figure out how to access its content. The ACIO's finest computer experts were called in to try to unlock the encoded disk, but to no avail. Several more months were spent trying every conceivable method to assess the contents of the disk, but nothing worked. The Ancient Arrow project, for the first time in nearly a year, had hit a dead end, and funding for the project was rapidly weaned by the ACIO. After 2 more months of unsuccessful efforts, it was decided that the technology to access the disk was simply not available. The optical disk and all of the artifacts and findings would be carefully placed in secure storage until the technologies were available to unlock the disk and harvest its content. It was presumed that the disk held star charts, translation indexes, glossaries, and all the answers to the various mysteries of its creators, and perhaps more importantly, their intentions for Earth. While the optical disc was considered to be the key to unlocking the meaning of the time capsule, the ACIO had little choice but to place the project into storage and await the arrival of technologies that would permit them to unlock the disc. However, there were 2 scientists from the research team who theorized that the disc could be unlocked by understanding the meaning of the wall paintings in each of the 23 chambers. In their minds, it was not a complex technological solution, but rather a language or translation solution that would unlock the disc. After much persuasion, the ACIO agreed to allow the two researchers to assemble a replica of the time capsule's contents. The replica time capsule consisted of detailed drawings and photographs of all the artifacts from each of the 23 chambers, including detailed, high-resolution photographs of the wall paintings. Two scientists would be allowed to continue their research on their own time, provided they maintained utmost secrecy and reported all of their findings directly to the ACIO division head and project director. The optical disc was securely stored away in a vault within the ACIO. The project was officially put on indefinite hold, and all personnel associated with the project were reassigned, with promotions to different projects. The Ancient Arrow project was not to be spoken of again until which time the technologies or some other means provided a way to unlock the optical disc and assess its contents. The scientists spent nearly 5 months in partnership trying unsuccessfully to decode the Ancient Arrow artifacts and establish the means to unlock the optical disc. During this time, the ACIO regularly experimented with new technologies or methods, and they too were unsuccessful in unlocking the content of the optical disc. One day, late in the summer of 1996, one of the scientists, a linguistics expert, had an insight into how to unlock the optical disc by reducing the symbols of the wall paintings to their closest facsimile found in an ancient Sumerian text. While the Sumerian language is extinct, it was sufficiently comprehensible to the scientist that he was able to decode the symbols of the paintings. And placing the 23 words in the same order as the Ancient Arrow chambers, he was able to finally unlock the optical disc. Connection between the Sumerian language and the time capsule was the breakthrough the ACIO team had been waiting for. A simple set of 23 words elicited over 8,000 pages of data from the optical disc. Unfortunately, the data was incomprehensible because there was no character set in the computer that could emulate the hieroglyphics and unusual symbols of the language. Thus, a translation index needed to be developed, which took an additional 6 months. Finally, once the translation index was programmed into the computer, the data, while it could be printed out or viewed on the monitor in its hieroglyphic form, still required translation to English. And this translation process was extremely tedious and could not be facilitated through computers, owing to the solidity of the language and its intricate connection to the wall paintings and pictographic representations elsewhere within the Ancient Arrow site. As partial translations began to be developed, it was determined that even within the optical disc, there was a segmentation of the data into 23 units. Each unit appeared to correspond to a specific chamber. As the first 2 chambers began to be translated, it was further shown that each unit contained philosophical and scientific papers, poetry, music, and an introduction to the culture and identity of its creators. The creators of the time capsule referred to themselves as Wingmakers. They represented a future version of humanity who lived some 750 years in our future, maybe our future selves. Future selves, you've heard me talk about that before, our future selves. Yeah. They claim to be culture bearers, or ones that bring the seeds of art, science, and philosophy to humanity. They had left behind a total of 7 time capsules in various parts of the world to be discovered according to a well-orchestrated plan. Their apparent goal was to help the next several generations of humans develop a global culture, a unified system of philosophy, science, and art. In early 1997, the ACIO scientists who had originally discovered the access code for the optical disc became strangely sympathetic with the Wingmakers' mission. He was convinced that the ACIO would never share the discovery with the public, and he was certain that it was too significant to withhold. He also claimed that he was in communication with the Wingmakers and that they were watching the ACIO's progress and would, at the appropriate time, make the time capsule and its contents available to the public. This assertion troubled the ACIO, and particularly the Ancient Arrow Project director, who eventually recommended a leave of absence, of course, for the scientists, and was similarly dispatched from the project. The scientist was afraid that his memories would be tampered with or destroyed altogether, and so he defected from the ACIO, quite literally the first to ever do so. Soon after his defection, the scientist disappeared. However, before his disappearance, some of his materials regarding the Wingmakers and their time capsule were given to a journalist that he had selected at random. The author of this document is that journalist. I am in possession of photographs, music, poetry, artwork, translation indexes, copies of secret documents, and a variety of translated philosophical texts that all stem from the Ancient Arrow Project. I've taken every precaution to remain anonymous so I can't be traced. I'm convinced that these materials are released against the wishes of a secret organization that probably has powers that even our government is unaware of. Oh, they're aware of it. Before the ACIO scientist had contacted me, whom I will hereafter refer to as Dr. Anderson. Isn't that from the Matrix? Isn't that funny? I felt little or no interest in matters related to time travel, extraterrestrials, secret organizations, or anything else similar to these issues. When I initially heard the story, it seemed preposterous, but I kept my journalistic objectivity and met with Dr. Anderson and reluctantly concluded that it would be unlikely for an individual to fabricate this story with such detail and supporting evidence and then desire to remain anonymous. Dr. Anderson had brought files of photographs and drawings of odd-looking technologies that had strange symbols engraved on their outer casings. Research reports referencing the translation tables, cipher protocols, star charts, and dozens of memos from the ACIO department heads discussing the Ancient Arrow Project, everything including about 400 pages of philosophical text had an authenticity to it that I was unable to reproach or ignore. In fairness to those who will suggest I should investigate further in order to get independent corroboration before I present these materials, let me just say that I'm unable to corroborate his story because of the very nature of the ACIO. However, for whatever reason, I trust Dr. Anderson, who gave me these materials. He asked nothing from me. He desired no money or recognition. His only request was that I decide how best to bring these materials to the public. He counseled me not to investigate the ACIO because he was convinced that NSA would use misinformation tactics that would simply waste my time and make the goal of releasing these materials difficult, if not impossible. I've not contacted any other office of the government because Mr. Anderson told me that this would be traced by the ACIO, who had high-level operatives in both the NSA and CIA, of course, and at best would only invite misinformation tactics from one or both. I am in possession of certain documents that I'll withhold from the Wingmakers website, but if anything were to happen to me, I've arranged to have these documents shared with major media companies whom I know, which of course, that one wouldn't be shared anyway, because we know the media is so corrupt. These are my only safeguards in presenting these materials. My only interest is in the release of these materials to the public, and they can decide what to do about them. They may desire to pressure their politicians or to take other action. It's their choice. I'm convinced that the story is too important to be held in the hands of an elite organization whose only interest is to re-engineer the technologies found in the Ancient Arrow site and apply them for their own agenda, no matter how noble the agenda may be. I also realize that the internet service provider who's hosting this website may come under scrutiny. that if any pressure is exerted on this ISP to abandon its hosting service for this site, then this may also cause me to distribute the documents I referred to earlier. Let me be clear, these documents provide incontrovertible evidence of this secret organization known as the ACIO, and its elite directors are named and their real identities exposed. I've spent the last several months agonizing about how these materials should be presented, and it seemed most appropriate to place them on the internet to enable a global audience to access them. I have a close friend who created this website whom I trust completely. Other than that, no one knows what I have done here, including my website host. You might ask why I've chosen to reserve full-scale media disclosure of the materials given to me by Dr. Anderson. I can only tell you that I don't want to create a circus atmosphere surrounding this discovery. It may ultimately end up in the mass media, but for now, my instincts are to keep a low profile for both these materials and myself. In doing so, I hope to preserve some sense of dignity of these artifacts and let it grow from there. Goes on for a little bit more. This is signed Anne, not my real name, written October 23rd, 1998. I'll go back to that one. There's another page here from Welcome to the Anderson Institute. It goes into a little bit more detail, I think, and so this article is really long, and I'm not going to get into reading it. Like I said, I'll put the link below. You guys can read it. It might be the same article. I'm not sure. I thought things were a little bit different, but they've hidden so much from us, basically. So if you go back up to the top of this page, there is all these little symbols. There's journal findings, there's transcripts, interview transcripts. If you click on some of the symbols, it will take you to this. It has project briefing and background. So that's what we just went through. The Advanced Contact Intelligence Organization selected memos from the ACIO directors in reference to the Wingmakers time capsule. So you can go through those. Language analysis, artifacts overview. And let me tell you, when this page was first new, like there were a lot more artifacts on here. They have taken out a lot. Some of the artifact pictures are gone. They're no longer there. And then if you go to the time capsule, this is really cool. You have the 23 chambers, and you can go through each one. And see, they have music, painting, poetry, philosophy, artifacts. So if you go to music, they used to have the music in here, and then they changed the website. They took the music out. You can't listen to it anymore. And I remember when it was first new, I remember listening to the music. I remember thinking like, it didn't sound any different, like, but maybe it was a different frequency that did something, who knows? But you can't listen to the music anymore. See, you can't reach the page. But you can go through the paintings. So here's like chamber 1, chamber 2. Looks like the Vesics of Pisces, basically a portal. See the wings. Oh yeah, look at that. Looks like a little ant person, huh? Like on some of the southwestern, hieroglyphics out there in the desert, the ant people. They're very strange paintings. Like they're very, I forget, like retro, I guess, like modern retro. But they must do something. There must be encoding or something in them. And I know there's some symbols in there. I was like, oh my gosh, I draw that one all the time. like I'm familiar with some of those symbols. They just look really familiar. So like you can go through these paintings and just see if anything resonates with you. It's may or may not. The symbols are just very I do that star symbol a lot. And Elena Denan has that sort of symbol on her webpage where it's like an X and then another like cross through it. So it's like a star, like on your number 8 key on your keyboard. I have drawn that symbol since I was a child. So that somehow has meaning to me somewhere. There's a pyramid. Looks like with the eye, huh? So yeah, all these different paintings. There's the philosophy. You could read through that. There's only 2 pictures of artifacts and they're crystals. So one's a double-ended crystal, possibly a Lemurian crystal, I don't know. And the only other one is this sort of crystal. So they've taken a lot of pictures of things out, like the compass and other things. And I know I've seen them. I can't think of them, what they look like. Like I said, it's been since like 1999, 2000, like, yeah. So things have changed in here. But poetry, there's a bunch of poetry. And I can read you a couple if I can. Let's see, poetry. If I can find them, there we go. Poetry index. There's 2 poems per chamber. Let's go read Song of Whales. It's kind of pretty. So, like the songs of whales, your voice lingers when it speaks, like rippling heat over a desert floor. It draws my heart and I find myself leaning towards its source, as though I know it will take me where you always are. It draws me near to your breath, the spiracle that holds the words of home. It draws me to the blanket you hold around your soul, you so willingly share. If you were to dive below the waters where the whales sing their songs, into gathering the deep currents that pull our courage along, channels that flow freely of worldly levels, you would find me there, listening to the voice I hear in you, feeding my heart in the waters of deep blindness where currents flow, mindful of you and your spirited ways. Sometimes I listen so perfectly, I hear your soft breath forming words before they are found by you, before you can bring them from the deep blindness to your heart. I wish I could take your hand and let it hold my heart, so you could see what I know of you, so you could know where we live, where we always are, and you could pull your blanket of words around us, and I could simply listen to your voice that honors words like the songs of whales. And then I will wrap this up with the Wingmakers poem. If this was like our future selves, and we see pictures of angels, we know angels had wings, like obviously there's beings with full-size wings out there. So I just think it's so cool. So Wingmakers. I am destined to sit on the riverbank, awaiting words from the naked trees and brittle flowers that have lost their nectar. 1,000 unblinking eyes stare out across the water from the other side. Their mute voices seek rewards of another kind. Their demure smiles leave me hollow. Am I a perpetual stranger to myself? The thought brands me numb. Am I an orphan trailing pale shadows that lead to the impetuous mirror? Where are these gossamer wings that my destiny foretold? I am waiting for the river to deliver them to me. to lodge them on the embankment at my feet. My feet are shackles from another time, my head a window long closed to another place. Yet there are places that salvage the exquisite tongue and assemble her wild light like singing birds, the sun. I have seen these places among the stillness of the other side, calling like a lover's kiss to know again what I have known before, to reach into the harvest and leave my welcome. These thoughts are folded so neatly they stare like glass eyes fondling the past. I listen for their guidance, but serpentine fields are my pathway. When I look into the dark winds of the virtual heart, I can hear its voice saying, "Why are you trapped with wings?" And I feel like a grand vision inscribed in sand, awaiting an endless wind. Will these wings take me beneath the deepest camouflage? Will they unmask the secret measures and faithful dwellings of time? Will they search out the infinite spaces for the one who can define me? Wings are forgotten by all who travel with their feet. Lines have been drawn so many times that we seldom see the crossing of our loss, though we feel the loss of our crossing. We sense the undertow of clouds, the gravity of sky, the painless endeavor of hope's silent prayers. But our wings, shorn of flight, leave us like newborn rivers that babble over rocks, yearning for the depths of the silent sea. I have found myself suddenly old, like the blackbirds that pour from the horizon line. My life has soared over this river searching for my wings. There is no other key for me to turn. There's no other legend for me to face. Talking to flowers and gnarled trees will only move me a step away when I really want to press my face against the window pane and watch the wingmakers craft my wings. I love that one. I wish I could have wings so I could fly just like an eagle, a hawk, my falcons. So I will put the links below. I'm sorry this was a long one today, but hopefully you learned something new. And please share with people you think that might enjoy this. And thank you so much to all my subscribers. I've gained several more over these wintry days, so I really appreciate it. I love all of you. You are my soul family. If you have any questions, email me at the email below. I need to get in there this week and check my email and my comments. So I love all of you. Hang in there. I know it's tough right now, and the winter is very depressing. And I know a lot of people, I wish we could just hibernate like a bear. I wish we could just hibernate and then just wake up in the spring and be skinny and thin and, just wake up to a new world. So anyway, thank you so much for watching this. I appreciate all of you. Hang in there, like I said, and we're going to get through this together, okay? So I know that light is getting brighter and brighter. It's just really hard when it's all white and yucky outside. So thank you so much. I love you all, and we will see you next week, hopefully. Bye-bye.